What's going on, guys? My name is Connor, and I am going to be going through the book of Job, doing a little devotional series on what I am taking away, what I've learned. The best part of this is that I am not a pastor. I'm just a Christian who likes to be in the Word a lot, and I'm going to be able to express some opinions, some arguments that will, I hope, push anyone's faith who's listening to this. I'm asking some tough questions. I'm a college student. I'm a sophomore. I'm 19 years old. The reason that's important is because I'm not the wisest person and I am not the smartest Christian. And I want people to understand that the ideas I'm throwing out are just what I have taken away, what I think are some big problems, are some challenges to Christianity. Defending our faith is very important. And that is why I wanted to do this, post some on YouTube, really just dive into the word. And with that being said, let's get into it. Let's get started here with we're starting with Job chapter 1. It's the prologue to the story of Job. I titled this whatever you want to call it, devotion, A Confusing God, Satan, Angelic Beings, and God's Omnibenevolence. That's what we're going to be going over. I hopefully, if I can figure out the editing, I've got slides here that should be showing so that you guys don't have to see my face. I'm going to be reading from my notes and from my Bible to hopefully get everything across. And I'm not going to do a lot of editing, so this could be a lot of yapping here. But I have spent some time on this. So let's get started with the chapter overview. So Job occurs chronologically during the times of Genesis. Most scholars believe this is after Noah or after the time of Jacob and Esau, which is important because Job comes after a lot of books, and if you don't know where it's placed, then the story doesn't make sense. So a lot of people think it comes after Noah just because of how it's written. A lot of people think it comes after Jacob and Esau because in verse 1 it says in the land of Uz, which is I believe a relative of Esau, and it's weird that it would be written as the land of Uz unless Uz was already a place. Job is labeled a blameless man who shunned evil. This is seen in verse 2 or verse 1 and verse 2 where it said, this man was blameless and upright. He feared God and shunned evil. Yeah, it's actually all verse 1. I just missed that in my my slides. So I'm already off to a bad start. And the writing is unique in the fact that the story shifts to heaven. We'll see this in verses 6 to 12. We actually get to learn tons about God, tons about what the heavenly realm looks like. And then the rest of the chapter is a tragedy for Job. He loses everything. That's verses 13 to 19. And then the conclusion shows Job's incredible character and foundation in God. Having our foundation in God is a huge part of what we'll see from Job. Also, if you see me looking over, that's just where I've set my slides. I need to read off them because I have a lot of important notes. I'll try to look at the camera, but I'm going to keep my face nice and small anyway. Parenting 101, verse 5. So this is what I wanted to get into to start. This wasn't a big part of the first chapter, but we see some interesting parenting here. I'm going to start from verse 4, where it says, his son used to hold feasts in their homes on their birthdays, and they would invite their 3 sisters to eat and drink with him. When a period of feasting had run its course, Job would make arrangements for them to be purified. Early in the morning, he would sacrifice a burnt offering for each of them, thinking, perhaps my children have sinned and cursed God in their hearts. This was Job's regular custom. What we see here is that Job's kids would hold feast. Not that this was sinful, but Job realized that they could have sinned, whether that be drunkenness, partying. We see a lot of stories of, like in Noah, when his kids walk in on him, that sin occurring just because Noah happened to drink too much, I believe, or eat too much, something along those lines. So he's basically protecting his kids from doing any evil or getting them right with God, which is what I believe a parent's supposed to do. How can you keep your kid from doing evil or continuing evil? Your job as a parent is to protect your kid, to point them to Christ, not necessarily be the judgment person. There's a lot I could say on this. Parenting is a very small part of this chapter, though, and I don't want to go too far into it. Job isn't active in telling his kids what to do. After all, he is blameless, and that title doesn't come if he is a terrible father. What I'm trying to say by that is, it says Job is blameless and upright, going back to verse 1. If he was, you can't say he's blameless and upright if he's got a big parenting issue. Clearly, part of Job's overall character is that he, as a father, is doing something right, or something to keep himself from being blameless. Job is not sinless, but he is blameless, and you can't be blameless if you're blatantly allowing your kids to sin. But that's not what he's doing. And it's important to note that it says in that verse 4, on their birthday. So it's not like they're just going out partying all the time. These are celebrations, stuff we all do as human beings. And Job isn't going directly to his kids saying, hey, can you stop partying? Hey, can you turn from this party way? It's more, hey, how can I pray for you? How can I support you as a father, protect you from falling into sin, into the path that Satan wants to lead you down? And he does that not by just going straight to him. He offers sacrifices, which is the equivalent of prayer. And we can assume that he's praying for his kids just by what the text is saying. If he's saying, perhaps my children have sinned and cursed God in their hearts, what he's doing is saying, I want to look out for my kids. I want to do whatever I can do, even though I know my kids are an independent entity. And I think that's one thing as parents that we will eventually struggle with, is that we are not fully responsible for our kids' actions. Some things we can do, some things we can or can't do that will never change how our kids become. A big part of that is friends. We would love if we could pick our friends for our kids, but we can't, which is why life is beautiful. Each of us got our own story for making our own decisions. Our parents help us along the way. And parents, I think the big takeaway from this is that we're to be the protector. We're to be the one to support them. We're to be the one to pray for our kids, to continually put a shelter over them in case they are sinning, in case they are stumbling, to keep them right in God's eyes when they themselves might not be able to. That's parenting 101. Okay, here we go. This is where we get juicy. Sorry, I am sick, so I'm not in the best spot to do this today. Trying to understand God, verses 6 to 7. What a great bit we got here. Let me just read verses 6 to 7 so you can understand what I'm talking about. It says, Job 1, verse 6, one day the angels came to present themselves before the Lord, and Satan also came with them. The Lord said to Satan, where have you come from? Satan answered the Lord, from roaming throughout the earth, going back and forth on it. Some notes I took was that Satan, here's the big question, where you see that big bullet point 1, I hope. The big question is, why does God allow the enemy in his presence? Satan is able to come into the meeting in the presence of God, which is really confusing because it's this whole problem of, we hear as Christians all the time about God's holiness. We see Moses not even being able to stand in God's presence. Some interesting takeaways are that we, for one, are humans. Satan is an angelic, he's a fallen angel. He's an angel. He's a level above us. God is above the angels. We got the Trinity. We got angels. Probably demons below angels. Don't know that. That's not specifically list. Demons aren't even mentioned here, so I'm not going to get into something I don't know about yet. And then we got humans. If you're a human, you don't want evil to be close to you. You don't want your enemy close to you. There's the saying of keep your friends close, keep your enemies closer. That's an interesting thing that you could maybe apply to this conversation, because why does God want Satan, or why is he allowing Satan into his presence? You've got a guy who's blatantly rebelled against you in heaven. It doesn't make sense why, to me, God would allow Satan into heaven, which we don't even know if this is in heaven, but it's pretty. That's where God dwells. So it says the angels came to present themselves before the Lord, and Satan also came with them. This is one of the most confusing things. Like I said, I think the biggest argument here is that I think it's to protect free will, in the sense that if God doesn't allow Satan into his presence, Satan can't ask for permission to do what he gets permission to do. And we'll see this reading later of if Satan can't come into God's presence, he can't get permission to go work on earth, which I don't think he gets permission anyway. I think he just does. But if he goes down into earth and isn't allowed to, maybe here's what's happening. Here's the ultimate argument. Job's got this protective bubble around him because he's such a good follower of Christ. He's so righteous, so upright, and then God's rewarding him. He's got a protective bubble. Satan can't get into that bubble, and Satan needs to get into that bubble. And so he has to ask permission if he can go and cause chaos in Job's life. Which shows God's power, for one, but it kind of answers this question of why would Satan be allowed in the presence? And it's so that Job can be given a choice to turn to evil or to remain his foundation on Christ. I think that's one of the best answers. But once again, what I want you guys to take away is the question from this. If you're God, why would you allow your opposite into your presence? Satan is not equally powerful. That's very important to notice here, is that he's an angel. God is God. And I said Satan, showing what a fallen angel truly is. Satan is the only angel acting on earth that we can see. I think it's a big point of notice. It said Satan answered the Lord from roaming throughout the earth, going back and forth on it. If Satan's able to cause chaos, think of how other angels, if they were walking on earth, how much good they could cause, how much good deeds and working things for good they can do. So I just wanted to put that in there, because as much as angels from God, they all go after God tells them to. I'm pretty sure. I've read the Bible, diving through it from Genesis now to Job, and I'm starting these videos at Job. I haven't seen anything where like Michael or Gabriel just decide to go without God telling them, hey, like, I need you to do this, or like it's implied that the angel is being sent from God. Satan's unique in the fact that he does what he wants. He doesn't care what God thinks. He wants to do what he wants to do for himself. He's a selfish. It's one of Satan's big characteristics, is that he wants control of everything that he can. And so what's interesting is that you have Satan as the only angel who is going to and from earth and heaven. Insight into Satan, because no other angel is doing that. And I don't know enough about demons yet to make a stance on this, but I do know that I'm pretty sure demons are allowed to do the same thing Satan does, and I think all demons could be fallen angels. I'm not for sure on that though, so don't take that to heart. Understanding God, part 2, verse 8. This is where we get more confusing. Then the Lord said to Satan, have you considered my servant Job? There is no one on earth like him. He is blameless and upright, a man who fears God and shuns evil. This makes me mad, because if you're a human and you're reading the book of Job, God essentially just threw Job under the bus, because God doesn't have a reason to necessarily bring up Job other than, I guess, God isn't being prideful here per se, but he's showing the confidence he has in Job. He's showing that, hey, Satan, you've ruined this world, but look at my servant Job, who is out here still living the way that I wanted all my followers to live. I wanted all human beings to live, to follow me, to pursue good, to pursue righteousness. And I think that's what he's trying to do. I think he's trying to frustrate the devil. That's my next point. But if you're a human being and you're listening, just pretend this was you. I'm going to use myself. Then the Lord said to Satan, have you considered my servant Connor? There is no one on earth like him. He is blameless and upright, a man who fears God and shuns evil. If I'm me, I'm like, yo, God, why are you throwing me out there? Why are you giving Satan a target on my back? I do not need that. Like, I've got enough problems on my own. I'm just trying to follow you. And you're telling me that you're going to send Satan after me? Because, listen, here's the thing as a Christian. If you have the Holy Spirit inside you, you have so much power inside of us to do good, to cast out demons, to perform miracles. Yet we're not seeing Christians do that today. It's probably a lack of faith. That's going to be a big argument on why we're not doing this. But I think one of the biggest things is we're scared to fight. Like, Job literally gets the target put on his back here. And we're going to see him take that hit that Satan's going to deliver. And it's going to be a big right hook. Probably one of the biggest right hooks anyone's going to take. Worse than what I've ever had to endure occurs to Job here. And worse things are going to occur. And what we see is Job just have such a foundation on God that it doesn't matter. But this is where the other problem comes in, is that God already should know that Job is going to be faithful through anything, which he does. We, as Christians, we'll get to this later in the Omnibenevolence, but God has certain characteristics that make him God. And if he fails one of them, there's concern for why we should be following him. God already should know Job is going to be faithful through anything, so why allow Satan to test a sturdy foundation? If Job wasn't blameless and upright, if Job was a firm follower of God, but he struggled, then, the test makes sense. Why are we throwing Job out there? Let's see if he'll stay true to me. If I'm God, I already know that Job is a faithful follower of me. It doesn't matter. I already know. I'm outside of time. This is the thing with God and debates. God's outside of time, so he theoretically knows that all this is going to happen, right? So, there's that confusing aspect. And if you know Job is blameless and upright, you know he's going to continue to be blameless and upright, as we'll see. Why are you allowing Satan to go work on that man, and why are you bringing Job up? I think it's confusing. I genuinely do. I don't have a great answer as to why God is throwing Job out here like this, other than showing us as Christians just what dependence on God looks like, what faith on God looks like, because as we get to this next part, next slide. Perfect. Satan and how angels work verses 9-11. As we get into this, we'll see that it says here's what Satan's argument's going to be. Does Job fear God for nothing? Satan replied. Have you not put a hedge around him and his household and everything he has? You have blessed the work of his hands, so that his flocks and herds are spread throughout the land. But now stretch out your hand and strike everything he has, and he will surely curse you to your face. Satan wants us to curse God. He wants us to turn from God and to him. One of the most interesting things is that I wrote that in my journal here, in my book that I do, my devotion notes, that an insight into how God potentially cares for us is given by Satan here. It shows that God potentially puts a bubble around us, which is the greatest blessing anyone could receive because it's protection from evil. When bad things are happening, it shows God removing his protective bubble for us, which shows trust or potentially is a trial to see how well we will stay in him and how strong we are against the enemy. I think that's very important of viewing our lives as this bubble. We all know God protects us from certain things. The more harm we seem to take, I think shows that God is either it's a trial or God showing his trust in us. It's if your foundation is strong, you can take a bunch of bullets and your house isn't going to crumble. If your foundation is built of cement and a person comes tries to bomb it and your foundation's so strong that the bomb just causes a little dent, then all you've done is show Satan that you're a problem. And if you're a problem, Satan's going to try harder. So I think that's what God's potentially doing with Job is he's showing Satan, look at this warrior I have who is a mere human. Imagine when he comes to heaven and I don't know if you get made into an angel. I don't know how that works. But I hope you see the point I'm going with. Satan wants us to think all relationships in our life are fake or non-authentic. He feeds off of doubt and fear. This is seen by how he's trying to play God, which is a strange play. But he says, does Job fear God for nothing? Listen, Satan wants you to think in your relationship with your friends, in your relationship with your family, in your relationship with your significant other, that the relationship is non-authentic, that something that you're being used for something, that the person doesn't truly like you, they're more using you for certain benefits. If Satan can cause doubt in a relationship, you're in trouble. You are in trouble as a couple, you're in trouble as a parent to son, you're in trouble as a friendship. Because if your friendship revolves around the basis that I can't tell my friends something because our relationship will crumble. For one, now you can't have authentic relationships. You can't point the person to Christ because you're scared that your friendship, there's a doubt that your friendship will fail if you hold someone accountable. And fear of losing a person. There's things that some of my friends have done, either at college or some of my high school friends, where I'm afraid to call them out because if I do, I'm afraid that I might say I'm sometimes a douchebag, and the fact that I'm very sometimes cutthroat with how I want to confront people, and it's something I need to work on. But if I can't do it in a way that's, we all talk about doing it in a way that's loving, but love isn't always soft. It's sometimes love is correcting. That's showing love. That's like a big part of parenting is showing love when your kids do something that's wrong. You have to confront them. You have to show them it's wrong. You have to provide a consequence. And I think one of the biggest things in relationships that we do is allow doubt to stop us from diving deeper and growing in our relationships. It's why girl-guy relationships are so beautiful in marriages. You obviously got the physical aspect, but you've also got this beautiful relationship where typically both people know each other so well and don't have a doubt or fear about what the other person's doing because they're not. When you go into a relationship, here's what I mean. Gosh, I'm diving deep into this. When you are in a relationship with a girl that you're trying to marry, you know there's a possibility that you lose her, but you also know that you have to grow deeper. With some of our friendships, why are we scared to go to that level? It's a good question. I think some friendships today are a lot shallower than we would like to admit. That goes for even some of my friends that I think I'm really close to now. I think I could probably hold them more accountable, but part of me is scared of losing the friendship because I'm scared to lose them. My friends mean quite a bit to me. And I think that's another thing. Satan would like us to think that our friends are the world, and if we lose them, we lose part of our world. It's a good attack by Satan, quite frankly, if he can do that to us. Valid points by Satan about faith in God, money, accessories, etc. Verse 10, Have you not put a hedge around him and a household and everything he has? Have you blessed the work of his hands so that his flocks and herds are spread throughout the land? How often in life do we love God when things are going great, but don't love him when things are not going great? That's what I'm basically meaning here. It's easy. It should be easy if you do like just look at my room. I'm in a gaming chair. I've got a basketball. I mean, I've got a Mac over here. I'm recording on my phone. Uh, I'm in a fraternity which costs hundreds of dollars. Uh, I could show you over here my shoes. My point. We are so blessed beyond what anyone back in Bible times are. Yet our faith is so much more fragile because we are scared. Or we're not scared. We've got this idea that God, if he's not blessing us, is actively trying to destroy us. And that's why this book of Job is so important. Just skipping to the end here, where verse 22 says, "In all this, Job did not sin by charging God with wrongdoing." Do you know how often we do that today? We blame the bad stuff in our life. For one, I write it here that shoot, I don't know if I'm gonna be able to find it. Shoot, maybe I wrote it on the slides. But your biggest enemy will come from multiple things. It will be from Satan to you, voice crack. Satan to you trying to attack you, demons trying to attack you. It'll be from other humans causing harm to you. Free will is somewhat a thing in this world. If our root is in God because of how blessed we are, our foundation is not that strong, and that's just a cruel reality. I've noticed it as I got fired recently, that I felt my relationship with God take a sharp decline, and now I'm back on the incline. But that's not the right reaction that I should be having, because it's okay to be sad. Losing a job, it's hard. You know, there's bad. It's not wrong reacting bad, but when I stopped praying for a couple days, when I fell into depression for a couple days, it's not right to have that reaction when it's the reality that I feel like God let me down in a way. This isn't a life story thing, so I'm not going to dive too deeply, but I'm using my own story as an example of how sometimes we let the tides of our life dictate how we follow God. Some people, it's the opposite. When they're really low, they'll be on God. When they're really high, they won't. Our journey with God really should be like okay, a really slow incline, just very gradual, really slow. It shouldn't be dip, 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 because that's not like how a relationship should be working. Relationships are better when you have little hiccups, a little highs, little lows, little highs. But like overall, if you were to look at your life, it's a slow, gradual incline. And I think that's important, because if we're putting our faith in things that, like money, we're going to fail. The Bible says, and I think it's Matthew, might be Mark, that if you put your faith in, it says you can't put your faith in both God and money, but there's this verse that's like, if you put your faith, if you are rich, it will be hard for you to enter the kingdom of heaven. And I think part of that is because it's hard to do what Job does here, where you have all these riches, if you lose them to then still worship God. Because you think that, like, oh, God's blessed me with all this. If all this has, then God isn't real. That's what we do now. And I think that's a big problem. I'm yapping. Holy cow, 30 minutes in. Satan directly tries to get God to avoid omnibenevolence. Let me just point this out, because we're going to go into this. But now stretch out your hand and strike everything he has. He will surely curse you to your face. Keyword, but now stretch out your hand and strike everything he has. This is verse 11, by the way. Do you not see what Satan tries to do? He's trying to get God to directly act, and if God directly acts by striking down Job's kids, if he directly strikes down his livestock, God is breaking his all goodness, which is what omnibenevolence is, and that is a huge problem if God does that, which is why it's important to see that God does not do that here. Angels are clearly very powerful. The reason that this is on this slide, even though it's in verse 19, is because we're not going to go deep into what happens with Job, but when suddenly, this is verse 19, when suddenly a mighty wind swept in from the desert and struck the four corners of the houses, it collapsed on them, and they are dead, and I am the only one who escaped to tell you. What Satan says is, but now stretch out your hand and strike everything he has. God will respond later and say that very well, everything he has is in your power, but on the man himself do not lay a finger. So Satan is the one doing all this, and Satan is able to seemingly control wind. As Christians, there's two things that we do that's infuriating. We give Satan too much power, and we give him not enough credit. I think it's safe to say that Satan controlled wind here. Angelic beings are powerful. Angelic beings are so powerful that I don't think we will truly understand them. My dog is going to bark. Slugger, can you come here, please? Anyway, it's crazy that he does that. I wanted to point that out because you might not believe that. I see when it says, when suddenly a mighty wind swept in from the desert and struck the four corners of the house. That after God said that Satan can go do whatever he wants to Job, except lay a finger on him, that Satan just controlled wind. Anyway, it's a scary thought, but it's true. What is omnibenevolence? Why is this coming up here? We just talked about it a little bit briefly. What is hopefully I can get through this like quickly. What is it? It's the idea that a deity or creator is all good in every aspect. The importance of this. If God claims to be all loving and all loving revolves around a central aspect of being all good. Also, God claims to be holy, which means he's claiming to be all good. If God breaks omnibenevolence, why should we follow that being? If God is doing evil deeds, why do we want to follow something that's evil? Perhaps it would be better to be in Satan's presence if both of them are evil. You know, there's not really, you're choosing a lesser evil if God is not omnibenevolent. Lastly, if God can cause evil, the whole point of God's holiness and splendor is broken, and his character is shattered. If you can prove God has done an evil act, it is very hard to argue as a Christian why you should be following God. Next, God's involvement, verse 12. We just went over this briefly. The Lord said to Satan, very well, then everything he has is in your power, but on the man himself do not lay a finger. Then Satan went out from the presence of the Lord. Okay, so God says that, very well, then everything he has is in your power to Satan. So it's in Satan's power. It's not God's power. That's important. But on the man himself do not lay fingers. So God's still going to protect. He tells, for one, interesting, he gives Satan permission. So big problem's going to come up here. Is God allowing... God allows evil, right? This is a central thing that you kind of have to allow as a Christian. God allows evil because God's all-powerful. He could not allow evil to exist. Big theological debates about this. But on the man himself did not lay a finger. God's still protecting Job. And it shows that God's power still is protecting Job. The bubble is still around. Now, instead of it being all around Job, this room... it's now just around Job, just around me. Anything in this room, Satan now has power to do whatever he wants to, is essentially what God's saying. God protects his character very wisely. What I mean, he protected his omnibenevolence by saying, Satan, here, it's your power. I'm not laying a hand like you tried to get me to do in verse 11 there. Satan basically asked God for permission to do what he wants. Let's get into this debate now. Is allowing evil to happen mean God is directly involved or not? Because that's an argument for omnibenevolence being broken, a big thing atheists, and a big thing us as Christians should be concerned about, because we want to be able to defend our faith, and we want our God to be all good. And there's some things that we question, that are to be questioned here. Here's the dilemma. Arguments for wrongdoing. Why And what I mean by wrongdoing, why it's wrong to allow evil. The train dilemma in pulling the lever. Everyone's seen this. I shouldn't have to explain this too long. There's a train. Currently it's on the track. It's set to kill these 5 people who are tied down to it. If you pull the lever, you basically, there's one person, but you're pulling the lever, so you actively killed a person, versus if you just let it go on, you're still allowing 5 people to die. So that dilemma, the reason that's relevant is because just think, if God pulled the lever here or didn't, what was his role in the evil that's about to occur to Job? If I know my friend is cheating on his girlfriend, but I don't tell the girl, am I just as guilty? Why is this important? Am I guilty if I see the girlfriend, my friend, cheating on his girlfriend for not telling her? I know that as a human, I would say absolutely. If I knew my significant other was cheating on me, I would want someone who's seen it to tell me. If God is watching Satan do evil, is he guilty? Because he knows he's doing it. He knows Satan's going to do it. It's an argument. I mean, these are just arguments for why it's potentially wrong. If you're not acting to do right, then you're helping do wrong. This is seen by allowing a bully to continue bullying a kid. If you're at school and you see a bully someone, and you're not stepping in, you're allowing the bully to continue doing his evil action. God, likewise, this is just an argument. I'm just throwing out arguments. God is allowing Satan to bully Job. When he knows it. He actively knows it. Arguments for innocence. I want you guys to think about these on your own. These are tough questions. Innocence. If you're not the person doing the action, then you haven't actually done anything. This is important because if my friend Braden Metzger comes in and pulls down the basketball hoop after he told me he was going to pull down the basketball hoop off the wall, I still didn't allow him to do it. I knew he did it, but how am I wrong? Am I going to be wrong in my parents' eyes for allowing him to do that? When I knew he was going to do it, I didn't do anything to stop him, but I also didn't tell him to do it. You guys see what I'm getting at there? I actually didn't commit a wrong action. That was Metzger who committed the wrong action. If I interact with the situation, am I violating a person's free will? I am not God. But God has made it clear that there's an importance with relationships with him of some aspect of free will. Free will is a big debate. I'm bringing this up for you to think about. I'm not going to dive deeper into it. But what I want you to notice is that if God does interact here, is he preventing Job from the opportunity to leave him? It's an interesting thought. And it's got more validity than I think most of us would like to think. Because at first I was like, I don't understand how this could violate free will. But if God's just saying no, saying, I'm not going to allow you to do that to him, then essentially he has created that Garden of Eden type thing with no bad choice for Job to go down, is what I'm trying to bring up. Which I kind of build my argument here. If free will is necessary for authentic relationships, then free will cannot be a bad thing, which just means that basically God, by choosing to allow free will, is the ultimate good. And we like to think, this is a philosophy thing, if God or any creator who created the universe didn't create the world with free will, and he created it with just good, would that actually be the best universe to live in? Because then you don't have authentic relationships. But you also wouldn't know that you don't have that. So big question, big debate. That's what I'm throwing out there, why free will could perhaps be the ultimate omnibenevolence universe. The ultimate good universe is us allowing free will and having true relationship with God. If I stop the bully, evil has still occurred, which was caused by another person. Okay, you guys get what I'm putting down here? The evil already occurred. The bully bullied the person, but hey, I stopped it now. The bully's not going to do it anymore. Eventually, God will stop Satan from inflicting disaster on Job's life. That's my point. If I tell the girlfriend the cheating already happened, I'm just letting her know. I didn't stop evil. I didn't stop the evil action from taking place. What I'm trying to throw out there in this argument is the idea that even though God's allowing it, it doesn't mean he's not going to stop it eventually. God can and will stop Satan from destroying Job's life. But he's also going to allow, like I said with the bubble example, at some point you have to allow the bubble to be tested. And I think that's what God's doing. Sorry, Job, verses 13 to 19. Job loses 3 waves of invaluable possession. We're going to go through this really quickly. This video has gone longer than I expected. Maybe I'm just really good at preaching, hopefully. Job loses 3 waves of invaluable possessions. First, he loses his livestock and cattle. Then he loses his camels and other forms of transportation. And then lastly, he loses all 5 kids. Satan lies to God pretty much. Let me just take you here real quick. In verse 10, Satan says, have you not put a hedge around him and his household and everything he has? You have blessed the work of his hands so that his flocks and herds are spread throughout the land. Satan, when he's arguing to God about Job's riches, never mentions his kids, never mentions the kids being a target. And God says, very well, then everything he has is in your power, but on the man himself do not lay a finger. God gives Satan permission, unfortunately, to do anything Satan wants. Probably, if you're God knows everything, but like if you're God thinking this, like if you're just a human being thinking this, what essentially Satan's saying, yeah, it's his livestock, it's his money. But then Satan says, yo, then I gave Satan permission to go attack someone. And then Satan's like, oh, you gave me permission? Well, I'm also going to go after his kids. Which was not in the, Satan specifically saying he's saying his flocks and herds. And then Satan goes after the kids, which is crazy. But that's how Satan lies. Satan's a deceiver. Satan is the king of lies. That's the point to be taken. How Christians should respond to tragedies, verses 20 to 21. Here's verses 20 to 21. At this, Job got up and tore his robe and shaved his head. Then he fell to the ground and worshipped and said, naked I came from my mother's womb, and naked I will depart. The Lord gave, and the Lord has taken away. May the name of the Lord be praised. In all this, Job did not sin by charging God with wrongdoing. We've already talked about this a little bit, so I don't need to go into the blaming God with wrongdoing part as much as I thought I would at this slide. But bottom line as Christians is God is not to be blamed. Other humans affect us. Other humans have actions. Job shows and knows that God can bless and he can remove anything from our lives in all situations. However, God moves in our lives, it should be considered a blessing because God works all for good. And we should know that God is working all for good. Yeah, and then lastly, God is not to be blamed for bad events that happen in our life because the person to blame is either Satan or another human being. We do live in a world where Satan can be active in it. We live in a world where humans have some sort of free will to some extent, I believe. Maybe not. I'm not here to debate free will in this chapter. That's not what the chapter is about. Job goes into a state of prayer. Take note, guys. If you're in disaster, go pray to God. Please, please pray. Pray with brothers. Pray with sisters in Christ. The Lord gave and the Lord has taken away. True or false statement here? Both is the answer. True in the sense that the Lord is allowing Satan to act. So technically this test is allowing things to be removed. God can and will remove people, things from your life. But maybe that's not God. Maybe that's free will. Different argument. It's false in the sense that the Lord didn't actually act in any way. This was all Satan who was taking stuff away, which is important to note. God didn't actually want anything to be taken away from Job. He was actually so proud of what Job was doing with how he was following him. So God wasn't punishing Job. He wasn't teaching Job a lesson. This is just bad. That's the thing too. That's a big note from Job. Not everything in our lives is a lesson from God or like to build us up. This is just disaster happening to Job. So don't sugarcoat your life when a bad thing happens. Sometimes bad things just happen, okay? Satan loves to work. He loves to be annoying. The Bible, first he still praises God. He says, may the name of the Lord be praised. How hard is it to do that? Oh my gosh, it's almost impossible. But we need to be trying to praise God in every situation that we can. Blaming God or accusing God. The Bible for some reason is very clear about Job not sinning. I just think that you see it with David. Now you see it with Job, where it's saying David was a righteous man or whatever. It's saying Job did not sin by and it gives us a specific sin that he didn't do, which is interesting, by charging God with wrongdoing. We've talked about that a little bit earlier. Blaming God or accusing God of doing evil is a sin, because then you're saying God's not all good. That's why it's a sin. Conclusion. Job, somewhat complicated individual. He's complicated in the fact that he is just built his foundation completely on Christ, and it's what we should be trying to do as Christians, but none of us live up to Job. There's very few Christians who, if this happened, would react this way. Maybe there might not be a human being who reacts this way in terms of their faith and foundation like Job does. God is complicated. Like we said, big questions here with God. Why is Satan allowed in his presence? That's the most confusing part of the whole chapter, if you ask me. Satan is not complicated. Let's look at what he does. He lies, he wants to create fear, and he wants to create doubt. Bing bong, that's how Satan works. Lessons to learn: how to respond to tragedy, insight into God's character. Those are some things you can take away. Questions: omnibenevolence problem, and why is God allowing evil in his presence? When we get some verses like God can't even look at sin. Satan is like walking evil. That big question. Anyways, guys, 47-minute video. I don't know if everyone's going to listen to this. This is basically a podcast. This is just the getting work done, I think is what I've titled my channel. Getting the work done, because we're going to the Bible. We're going to get the work done. Thank you guys for watching this. I hope you liked it. Please leave some comments down below. I don't expect you all to watch the whole thing. Just let me know what you took away. Watch this video in 2x speed. That's a great way to do it. I am a yapper. Thank you guys so much. I'll see you all again sometime tomorrow, hopefully.